Hey, so I want to talk about the Battle of Brisbane, Manny Pacquiao versus Jeff Horn. Um, More specifically about the aftermath. I have to be upfront. I haven't seen the fight directly. I don't have pay-per-view, so I can only see fights when someone streams them to YouTube or somewhere else, which is somewhat unhelpful because it means I can only do a post analysis later on, at least in terms of the fight itself. So I want to be very clear about that. I haven't seen the fight, and so I'm not going to make any pronounced comments like I believe Jeff Horn definitely won because I can't say that. I have looked at the fight statistics, and by all accounts, Pacquiao done a lot more to win based on the fight scorecard. Pacquiao threw more punches, he landed more punches. So based on that, you would think Pacquiao done enough to win. And certainly there's high profile. Just in case you don't know what's happened, this is the WBO World Welterweight title fight involving Manny Pacquiao, considered one of the greatest fighters of all time, and an Australian guy called Jeff Horn, who's uh, nowhere near as well known. I don't know much about Jeff Horn myself. I know he's a former teacher, um, and the guys had 16 fights, 17 including last night. So I say last night, actually, if it was in daytime, it was an open air fight, which is unusual. Anyway, there's huge controversy because the Pacquiao fans are really up in arms about this, and so is a good part of the boxing world. It's worth bearing in mind that although the fight was in Australia, it was in Brisbane. None of the three judges were Australian, two were American, one was Argentine. That is important because there's already rumours of corruption and even that Jeff Horn paid them. I think that is a very serious allegation, and people shouldn't be throwing that around. Um, if that is later proven to be true, then it is indeed a disgrace. But until that is proven to be true, then it is a very, let's have due process. Um, the other main thing going around is that Jeff Horn is a dirty fighter. Well, like I said, I haven't seen the fight, so I can't really comment on that. I will say that in itself, in the sport, unfortunately, it's part and parcel of the sport. In theory, it shouldn't happen. You shouldn't get constant dirty fighting. Rules are there for a reason. But it would be simply wrong to suggest that Manny has always fought clean. He hasn't. Manny's had fights where he has not exactly been squeaky clean in terms of obeying the rules. So that's something that is important to bear in mind. Now, in terms of my own feelings, let me be very clear. I have enormous respect for Manny Pacquiao. He is an eight division world champion. He has accomplished incredible things in the ring. He's someone who has transcended the sport of boxing. He's a national icon in the Philippines. He is a truly inspirational athlete as well as a person. Um, so none of that changes from last night. Manny Pacquiao will still be one of the greatest fighters of all time without question. But I do feel somewhat uncomfortable that this guy, Jeff Horn, has had an incredible achievement beating Manny Pacquiao. Whatever you think of the results, the result is the result. And instead of being able to enjoy his moment, it seems that I looked at his Facebook page and all it is, that every other comment virtually, with one or two exceptions, is hatred and vitriol. Like, oh, Jeff, you're a fake fighter. Jeff, you're gay. Jeff, you don't deserve it. Jeff, you're a runner. Jeff, you're a coward. All this sort of stuff coming from Pacquiao fans. And to be honest, it makes me uncomfortable, and this is why. If you really believe that the decision was unfair, and I appreciate that it's a controversial decision, you get people like Lennox Lewis, Teddy Atlas have expressed their discontent with it. Um, by all accounts, it is a controversial decision. I'm not suggesting it isn't, but what I would then suggest is people should voice their anger towards WBO. In the end of the day, a fighter fights. A fighter doesn't really have any control over the decision. He does what he has to do in the ring, but ultimately it is a decision of the judges. So if anything, they should be taking out their anger on the judges, not on Manny's opponent. If this was a one-off, it might be okay. Well, it's because it's controversial. But the thing is, there is a track record with this, and as a Manny Pacquiao fan myself, I'm being honest about this. I am saying I notice that whenever Manny loses, at least in more than one occasion, there has been this reaction of vitriol and spite and sometimes downright ugly behavior. I'll give an example. One woman actually posted this picture of Jeff Horn in the hospital. Presumably that had been from the clash of heads. He had an ice pack on his head, and she was actually laughing about it. Now, what sort of sick person laughs over a man in hospital? Whatever you think of the decision, to me, that's just low. And I have always called out fans that I think are behaving in a way that is demeans the sport. Now, people will turn around and say, "Oh, but Jeff Horn fighting dirty demeans the sport." Maybe so. Like I say, I haven't seen it. It may well be that that was the case. Um, but in the end of the day, he has won the fight. That's on the paper. Now, there might be an investigation. There might be, people will say it damages sport, the sport's credibility. But I don't think the right approach to it is to flame the opponent's Facebook page with hate. What's that going to achieve? And I don't think Manny himself would approve of it because that's not Manny Pacquiao's style. He's never been a trash talker. He's never been into that sort of approach. So I don't think he'd necessarily approve of his fans doing this. But frankly, I do see this a lot. They've done the same thing with Floyd Mayweather. They've done the same thing with Tim Bradley. Not so much with Marquez because that was more of well, there was a quadrilogy of fights there. I can't recall if it happened with Eric Morales, and in the defeats to uh, Rustico Turacampo and Medgo and Singsurat, they were both at a time when Pacquiao was still not really a big name on the world stage. Um, I think the defeat at the hands of Rustico Turacampo was way back in 1995. Mego and Singh Surat in 1999. Um, if we assume Pacquiao to sort of reach his peak in, let's say, the late 2000s, early 2010s, then the defeats that he had at that time, the guys that defeated him, with the possible exception of Marquez, the fans responded the same way. With Mayweather, what was it? Oh, gay weather. Floyd's running. Floyd gets track and field, etc., etc. With Tim Bradley, Bradley was bombarded with hate, like, oh, you should return the belt to Pacquiao, etc. Um, by nature, boxing is a very partisan sport. People will have strong views, they will passionately support their fighter. I get that. But I do think sometimes with Pacquiao fans, it goes too far. It gets to the point of, and I used to think British boxing fans were some of the worst in the world in terms of, and before anyone attacks me, I don't mean worse in terms of loyalty. I mean worse in terms of the behavior. But now I'm starting to see certain Filipino fans are behaving in a very jingoistic sort of manner. I mean, if they're saying if it hadn't been for the dirty fighting, they wouldn't have the attitude they had. Let's say, for the sake of argument, Horn done enough. Like, there was no controversy on the scorecard. To be quite honest, I think they would still be coming out with that attitude because they just cannot stand the idea of their man, um, losing. And it's maybe the point has come where I get it. A great fighter has a lot of pride. Pacquiao wants to continue fighting, but he is a senator. He has got another role in life, and I don't know how his constituents feel about him continuing to fight. Um, there comes a point when every great fighter has to call it a day. Now, it looks like there probably will be a rematch. Horn has agreed to that immediately, and that's the point. Horn could have said, I don't want a rematch, although apparently there was a rematch clause, but he immediately agreed to it. So clearly he has the confidence. Clearly he believed he won. Um, I would say, to make it fair, it shouldn't be in Australia. It should be somewhere neutral. Um, I don't know where, but somewhere neutral, Macau maybe. Um, that way, the Pacquiao fans can't say it's biased because it was in an Australian ring. I understand that when you have a situation where one fighter wins and he's from the host country, and it's a huge upset, there are going to be rumours of corruption. I have to say, looking at the scorecard, I myself find it hard to see how Horn won. Although by all accounts he fought bravely and he fought tough, so maybe that was enough. I don't know, but Pacquiao landed more. So here's the thing. I'll summarize with this. I don't. I'm not taking issue with the fact that people are unhappy with the result. I'm really, really not taking issue with that, and I'm not taking issue with people complaining about the result. But what I do take issue with is throwing all these hateful, spiteful comments onto the opponent's Facebook page. I mean, really, get a life. This is a sport. It's not a war. And I think that's unfortunate that you know Jeff Horn has to put up with this because in the end of the day, even if he was fighting dirty, pretty much every fighter has at some point in their career, including Pacquiao. So I'm not saying that I'm not encouraging that. I'm not saying that fighters should do it, but it's unfair to criticize Jeff Horn for it when so many other fighters have done it, and there's far less controversy. Um, I mean, you could argue in the Mayweather fight, Pacquiao did not disclose his arm injury. That was technically violating the rules because in the pre-fight paperwork, that was something that had to be disclosed. Pacquiao just didn't disclose that. So if we're going to talk about being really strict with the rules, then there's very few fighters are squeaky clean. Very few fighters. Um, so that's how I feel about it. I just think it's unfortunate that so many Pacquiao fans feel the need to get so crazy about it. And very often it's homophobic. It's very often jingoistic, at times racist, and it doesn't really do much for the sport of boxing in terms of throwing out all this garbage. I mean, I understand that you have strong views, fine. But in that case, just take it up with WBO, take it up with the judges in a civil way. Say, why did you reach this decision? It's wrong. We disagree with this. This is corrupt. But when you get into such personal attacks, there's no need for it. I mean, do any of you people know Jeff Horn personally? No. So why such hateful comments? It's pathetic. And I'm saying that as a Pacquiao fan. I'm not biased here. I don't know anything about Jeff Horn. I'm not like a hardcore Jeff Horn fan. I don't know anything about the guy. But what I am saying is that this doesn't do any favors for Manny Pacquiao. If there is serious, cause for concern, I think there should be an investigation. I think they should review videotapes, etc. And then maybe there should be a rematch. I think under the circumstances, there should be a rematch. But after that rematch, if Pacquiao loses that, then his supporters are going to have to accept that. I'm talking about his hardcore supporters. They're going to have to just accept the fact that the great man cannot win all the time. Um, and at that point, I think Pacquiao's seriously going to have to think about calling it a day. I know no fighter wants to retire on a bad note, but many great fighters have. Oscar De La Hoya did. Um, and what I would say is, in this rematch, and it looks like it probably will happen, the fans will have to then, if it takes place in a neutral location, as I believe it should, and if Horn once again wins, then they would have to accept that. But you cannot say it's corruption every time Pacquiao loses because they said the same thing when Tim Bradley won. They said the same thing when when Floyd Mayweather won. Now, I watched the Mayweather fight. There was no corruption there. I'm sorry, but Mayweather is just an outstanding defensive fighter. That's not running. If you think that that defensive style is running, then you don't know boxing. It's a style that not everyone likes. I appreciate it's not the forward aggressive style that a guy like Pacquiao shows, but it is still boxing. And another thing that bugs me is a lot of the people attacking Jeff Horn have never been in the ring in their lives. You know, I will also say, and I might be accused of sexism here, I don't care. I find it very ugly, particularly in female fans, to come out with this sort of vitriolic, nasty attacks on a man who, every time a guy steps into the ring, I expect, what I'm saying is I expect it from male fans, but when I see it from, nice girls, I'm thinking, well, whoa, that's kind of like on, it makes me uneasy. I don't like to see this shit from anyone, and it's just, anyway, I'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts. Well, to be honest, this might be one of those videos I block the comments because it's an emotive subject, and if people disagree with me, make a counter video. I might block the comments because I don't want them to be spammed with, "Oh, you're a faggot. You don't understand this. You don't understand that. Blah blah blah." Personal attacks against myself. Um, Maybe I'll take a risk. Maybe I'll leave the comment section open. But if I get comments like uh, attacking Jeff Horn personally, in terms of anything other than the fight itself, then I'm not going to leave the comment section open. But there it is. That's my thoughts. I think I have not seen. I cannot think of any other fighter, say if perhaps Mike Tyson, one or two others, where there has been such partisan feelings every time the guy has lost a fight. I cannot think of any other fighter where there's such strong emotions, and it's something I do notice with Pacquiao's fans. And I do wonder sometimes, is there a nationalistic thing going on there? Even a Filipino newspaper reported this after the Mayweather loss, that there is a particularly regressive attitude among some Pacquiao fans in the Philippines. Final word, I am not attacking all Filipino fans. I am not generalizing. I am not attacking all Pacquiao fans because I myself am a Pacquiao fan. So it would be a bit contradictory if there was. But these are the attitudes I see time and time again. And I don't think it's good for the sport.